Do you find yourself having any sort of vocal issue that's affecting your chanting? Maybe excessive mucus, hoarseness, something like that. Maybe it's magnified a little bit during Lent. If this sounds like you, you're really going to want to watch this whole video. I did a poll recently on my YouTube channel asking you, my viewers, if you've ever experienced health issues that affect your chanting, like chronic mucus, hoarseness, etc., even things that may resemble like asthma. About 65% of you said sometimes, and 22% of you said all the time. And as much as I want this to be a short video, there's so much I want to discuss, and really I feel like it's my obligation to thoroughly explain this topic that I want to discuss in this video in order to help chanters who are struggling. Because there's a lot of people that have this issue. I'm surprised at the number of people who have this issue, and also the number of people who probably have this issue but don't even realize it. And frankly, I'm the only chanting teacher, the only music teacher, in fact, on the whole internet, as far as I know, who is qualified to speak about this subject, because I've had this condition all my life, and I treated it, I fixed it, and that's what I want to speak about, and I solved this problem at its core, at its root, basically. And if you've watched my other videos related to Byzantine chant, you know that I don't mess around when it comes to, giving you real, thorough, and quite original answers and explanations and solutions to various problems you may encounter as a chanter. So I want to talk about an issue known as LPR, otherwise known as silent reflex or singer's reflux, and it's also called respiratory reflux. And before you go, oh, I don't have acid reflux, wait a second and watch this, because like I said, you might have this condition without realizing it, because it does not present the normal symptoms that you may associate with acid reflux. It can be mistaken and misdiagnosed, and is often misdiagnosed as allergies and other similar conditions, asthma, stuff like that. And some interesting research I have seen is that this condition is 10 times more common than the typical like heartburn and GERD. Now, since we're on YouTube, I want you to turn on your sarcasm receptors for a second as I give you a little disclaimer. So, this video is not medical advice. I would never give medical advice. I'm not a doctor, so I'm not giving medical advice. If you have any health issue, the only thing for you to do is just go to your doctor, and they're going to give you some sort of medicine that is definitely going to treat the root cause, definitely going to solve the problem, no side effects. That's definitely what you want to do. If you have a medical issue, I would never give medical advice, and everything I'm going to say in this video is just, we're just going to joke around, okay? So, now that we got that out of the way, let's get into it. First of all, I just want to note that I made a very thorough video on this topic in the past. I will link it. I'll link it in the description or something. It's a very long-winded video. It's a really long video. And in this video, I hope to summarize things a bit more quickly. If you really struggle with this issue, you should go watch the original video I made about this, even though it's long. In this video, I want to summarize things a bit more quickly, I guess, and I also want to talk specifically about this problem and why does it come back for some people that have treated it and then it comes back, right? Again, why am I qualified to talk about this? I've had this issue since I was a baby. So extreme, if we're talking about acid reflux in general, so extreme that I would literally drink milk and just throw up and stuff. I couldn't eat anything. I had this problem very severely since I was a baby, and it's only when I started chanting that I realized the connection like how it was affecting like my vocal cords and stuff. And that's when I really made sure to get to the root of this problem and to treat it in a very effective way. And this is by no means, a comprehensive guide to fixing this, because that would take hours to get into everything. I could probably start a whole channel just on this subject, and I'm just going to give you the basics, and we're going to talk about why does this problem come back after you treat it. And by the way, if you want to learn more about this, there's 2 great YouTube channels you can visit that really go into depth about these subjects, about this subject. The first one is called Kick It Naturally. It's a great YouTube channel of this guy who basically went through something very similar to what I have gone through, actually much worse, actually. I think he went through it a lot worse than what I did, but he really understands this subject very well, this issue, and treating the root cause and all that stuff. And then another channel is Dr. Berg, Dr. Eric Berg. Most of you are probably familiar with him. He understands acid reflux and getting to the root cause of it and treating it and all that stuff. So the 2 channels I recommend if you want to get deeper into this. So what is this LPR acid reflux? Well, it's a condition that can manifest in a few ways. Some of the ways some of the symptoms would be a hoarse voice, chronic mucus or throat clearing, also postnasal drip and congestion and allergies, the symptoms that are commonly associated with allergies. Also trouble breathing, sometimes, specifically taking air in. And this often gets misdiagnosed as asthma. Now the key thing is these symptoms are worse in the morning when you wake up, which makes sense because this acid reflux is happening at night as you sleep. So it's worse in the morning, and many times there's an absence of the typical heartburn symptoms. You don't feel the typical heartburn symptoms. That's what makes it confusing. So I want to talk briefly about the treatment and the root cause of this issue. So I spoke about this in the original video that I made, which I'm going to link, and I want to make this as brief as possible, even though it's a complicated subject. Basically, we're talking about acid reflux. We're talking about the stomach contents coming up. For a lot of people, it comes, the stomach contents, stomach acid, and all that stuff comes up here in your chest and your esophagus, right? And you're going to feel it in your chest. That's the traditional, typical heartburn, which most people are familiar with. What I'm talking about is something that comes up usually in the form of air bubbles. And it comes up, this stomach acid comes up a lot farther. It comes all the way up to the throat, the vocal cords, this whole area. And that's how it causes damage. That's how it causes these symptoms, and that's why sometimes you don't feel the typical heartburn symptoms. Now, either way, we have this issue where we have something called the lower esophageal sphincter. It's right here. I can't. Right here. Right? It's like where the stomach is. It's the sphincter that's supposed to close so that food and stomach contents do not come up, to the esophagus and stuff after you eat. It's supposed to close very tightly. And when you have this acid reflux condition, it's not closing. It's still open. Now, the question is, why isn't it closing? The common sort of treatment and solution for this condition is you go to the doctor and you get some PPIs. You get the name of this medicine that basically inhibits stomach acid production, right? So the logic is you have stomach acid coming up. Let's inhibit the production of the stomach acid in the stomach. Now, in a healthy person, keep in mind that this LES valve, this sphincter, is supposed to close very tightly after eating and during digestion, so the stomach contents do not come up. It stays in the stomach. So is acid reflux caused by too much acid? So the solution would be to reduce the acid production? That's the typical explanation. My question for you is, what is the pH level of a healthy person's stomach supposed to be? Any doctors in the comments, you can answer this question for me. What's the pH of the stomach in a healthy human being supposed to be? If you answered between 1 and 3, you'd be correct. 1 and 3 on the pH scale is very, very acidic. It's like battery acid. So that's very acidic. That's the pH level of a healthy person's stomach. And the stomach can handle this level of acidity and actually needs this level of acidity. If you think about it, that's how bacteria from the food we eat, because all the food we eat has some bacteria in it. That's how the bacteria is killed when we consume food and it enters our stomach. So it's killed in the stomach by the high acidity of the stomach so that it does not make us sick. And we also need the stomach acid to break down protein, to absorb vitamins and stuff like that. And I spoke about this in the original video. So stomach acid is essential. But the esophagus and the vocal cord area, everything up here, is not made to handle stomach acid. It's not made to handle digestive enzymes coming up and burning this area. So that's why, as is the case for a healthy digestive system, this is what happens in a healthy person, but it's not happening for those of us who have acid reflux. And specifically, I'm talking about this valve, this LES closing, so that the stomach acid does not come up. We have to figure out a way to close it so that the stomach acid cannot come up. So now we get to the sort of solution to the problem. If you look into this issue, you will see that for many, many people, including me, the problem is that the stomach acid is coming up because the LES is not closing, because the stomach is not acidic enough. I'll say that again. The reason the LES is not closing for many people is because the stomach is not acidic enough. Not too much acid, but not enough acid actually is the problem. And like I said, in a healthy digestive system, the stomach pH, like I just said, is supposed to be between 1 and 3. And when the stomach has this correct level of acidity, the LES gets the signal to close very tightly. It gets a signal from our nervous system to close very tightly for the digestion process to sort of happen. So again, I get into this in a lot of detail in the original video, but the answer to the problem for most people is to acidify the stomach, to make the stomach more acidic. Now, this is the solution, but unfortunately it's not so black and white as you're going to see in a second. Now, here's what worked for me and what has worked for many other people. There's something called betaine hydrochloride. Betaine hydrochloride. You can get it at the store. It's a digestive supplement, basically. So it's probably going to be with the supplements under the digestion section. And most of them have pepsin. It'll say it has pepsin in it. I would try to get one without pepsin, because you're going to need to take a lot of it. Most people are going to need to take a lot of it, and you don't want a ton of pepsin, basically, in it. Betaine hydrochloride, by the way, is something that, like I said, it's a lab-made version of the stomach acid that our stomach is supposed to produce on its own. So it's something that is going to help the stomach out to produce more hydrochloric acid, more stomach acid. It has been documented in one study to safely and effectively increase the stomach acidity of these participants who were given actually PPIs to induce a state of low stomach acid. And the betaine hydrochloride increased the acidity of the stomach in this study. The way you use it is you take one with a meal that has to be a meal that contains sufficient amounts of protein. You take it in the middle of the meal. You take one and you just see how you feel. You have to take it in the middle of the meal, not like at the beginning or at the end. Very important to take it in the middle. See how you feel. Here's the interesting thing. If the problem of acid reflux is actually too much acid in the stomach and it's coming up, then you'd think that adding more stomach acid you would feel a burning, you would feel some negative symptom, right? For a lot of people, including myself, a lot of people will take one betaine hydrochloride with the meal and actually feel nothing. In that case, when you feel nothing, there's no difference. The next meal you're going to take, and again, a meal with significant protein, the next meal you're going to take 2 of these betaine hydrochloride. See what you feel, right? And you're also going to pay attention to your symptoms, your acid reflux symptoms. Are they improving as you increase the dosage? And you're basically going to increase the dosage by one capsule every meal, basically. And you're going to continue this until you feel a warm sensation in your stomach. Just like a sort of warm sensation. And that means you took just a little too much. And it's okay, it's not that big of a deal. You're just going to decrease by 1. So if you felt a burning sensation at, let's say 6, you're taking 6 of them. I'm trying to see if I have it. No, I don't have it with me. I was going to show you. No. It's betaine hydrochloride. You can get it at almost any store in the digestive enzyme section. But basically, if you're taking 6 and you got a feeling of burning, you're just going to decrease to 5. You're going to take 5 per meal. And that's going to be like your dosage for every meal. You're going to take 5 betaine hydrochloride. And what you're doing is you're acidifying your stomach. You're helping your stomach to make more of the hydrochloric acid that it's supposed to make on its own. But for you, and for me as well, for a lot of us who have this acid reflux, for one reason or another, the stomach is not making the hydrochloric acid that it's supposed to, so we're just helping it out. And that's what the betaine hydrochloride is going to do. And you want to track your symptoms as you do this and see if the problem gets better. And you are going to need a lot, because this betaine hydrochloride, it's not as potent as you'd think. Stomach acid in the stomach is very, very potent and acidic. This betaine hydrochloride, it's something, like I said, to help out the stomach acid production. It's not super potent. And the way they make it now, it's not as potent as it used to be. So you might need to work your way up to 5, 6, or more. I wouldn't go more than 8. of the 650, what is it, 650 milligrams or something in each capsule. I wouldn't go more than 8 capsules. And we'll get into that in a second. So you're going to get, if you take too many, you would get a sort of warm or burning sensation. You might get like diarrhea or something like that. But this is how the majority of people, as I explained in greater detail in my video, this is how the majority of people basically are going to fix their acid reflux. They're going to fix this issue of stuff coming up from the stomach up here. Because you're going to acidify the stomach, you're going to get the stomach to the correct pH so that this LES, lower esophageal sphincter thing, closes very tightly. For the majority of people, this is going to be the solution to your acid reflux issues. Because for the majority of people, the issue is not that you have too much stomach acid. Like I said, like we just said, the pH of the stomach is supposed to be very acidic. So how do you reconcile that if too much acid is the problem, but the pH of the stomach is supposed to be acidic? You know what I mean? Most people who have acid reflux have the issue of not enough stomach acid. It's not the issue that it's too much. And an easy sort of way to see this very clearly is that if you're like me and many other people, you're taking up to 5, 6, 7 betaine hydrochloride capsules per meal, and the symptoms are getting better. The acid reflux symptoms are getting better, not worse. If the issue was you had too much stomach acid and you're getting acid reflux, then naturally adding more stomach acid would make the problem worse, but it doesn't. Why is that? Well, there you go. That's your answer. The issue is not too much stomach acid. It's that you don't have enough. So hopefully that makes sense to everyone. When you do this process of acidifying your stomach, you have to eat a healthy diet. Right? So for most people, this means at a minimum, you have to stop drinking alcohol and sugar and processed foods, especially like processed grains, really deplete your natural like hydrochloric acid. And also avoiding common trigger foods just during this initial healing process. So for many people, that's going to be like onions, garlic, tomato, chocolate, caffeine, mint, sometimes really heavy fat, stuff that just kind of when you have a dysfunctional digestive system to begin with, these foods will kind of relax the lower esophageal sphincter, and you want to just avoid it. Different people have different like triggers, foods that trigger acid reflux. You have to know what's triggering your symptoms. So for most of you, if you do this, your symptoms of acid reflux are going to drastically get better. Now, let's get into the more complicated parts, because unfortunately, it's not so simple, it's not so black and white. There's a lot involved here. And again, I've been through this, so I can tell you exactly everything that can happen in this process, everything that can go wrong, that's, again, coming up here and causing irritation in your vocal cords and affecting your chanting. Just real quick, who shouldn't take betaine hydrochloride to acidify your stomach? Well, if you have a history of ulcers or gastritis or any stomach inflammation, do not take betaine hydrochloride under any circumstances. You have to heal the stomach lining first. And for a lot of you, if you take one capsule, this is the thing, you're going to start with one betaine hydrochloride with a meal. If you take one and you feel like a burning in your stomach, don't take any more. That's a good way to know, okay, something's wrong. right? It's if you don't feel anything that you increase and you take another one. So I'm not telling you guys to just take a bunch of betaine hydrochloride. You're gonna track your symptoms. You're gonna see how you feel after taking one. Now, here's when we get into a little caveat, a little complicated thing. Sometimes you will feel worse acid reflux symptoms after taking one betaine hydrochloride. See, it's a very nuanced subject, and really, as you can see, I've been through this. I know what I'm talking about because I've experienced it. So that's why I'm able to give you the specifics in a way that nobody else can, really. So why would you feel, let's just clarify real quick, why would you feel worse? Or why would you have magnified symptoms after taking one betaine hydrochloride, let's say, with a meal? Well, really, it makes a lot of sense why this would happen, and it's not necessarily a sign that you need to stop. Now, if you have to be careful. If you have a burning, if you feel a new symptom of burning in your stomach with taking betaine hydrochloride, you should stop. But what if the acid reflux symptoms just kind of get a little bit worse? Well, it actually makes a lot of sense why this would happen. Remember, we need to have the correct pH of the stomach to close this valve. But what if you just add a little bit more acid? Like I said, most people are very deficient in stomach acid. I'm trying to like drive this point in. Me and many other people have had to take a lot of betaine hydrochloride capsules in order to actually finally start to feel relief of these acid reflux symptoms. So that tells us that the issue was low stomach acid, right? For I'd say 90% of people who have acid reflux. I'm trying to really get this point in so people can understand it. So what would happen if you add just a little bit of acid into your stomach by taking one betaine hydrochloride, but it's not enough acidity to close the valve? So the acid is still coming up, but now it's just more acidic. So you can imagine the symptoms are going to get worse. The heartburn, the mucus you were feeling before, it might get a little bit worse. It makes sense. What you need to do is get up to the right dosage of betaine hydrochloride so your stomach can reach the right pH so that LES, lower esophageal sphincter, can close. You have to understand that, right? Now, I'm not going to tell you what to do here. I'm not going to say just keep doing it if the symptoms get worse. Keep taking more betaine hydrochloride. I can't tell you to do that. I'm explaining the how this works to you, and you can do with it what you wish. Again, to reiterate, if you feel a burning in your stomach, that's a little bit different. Make sure to differentiate the two things here. If you feel a burning in your stomach, that's an issue. You should definitely stop taking betaine hydrochloride. If the acid reflux symptoms you had before simply get worse, this is a reason why that might be happening. Just so you know, I'm not telling you what to do. I just want you to see the whole picture. Quick side note. I just wish there wasn't so much to talk about here, but I don't want to leave details out. I want to give you everything. You need to take the right vitamins and minerals and all that to help your body make stomach acid. What we're doing here is we're acidifying the stomach so this valve can close. So we're adding something called betaine hydrochloride, as I said, that's going to help out the stomach, just help it out to produce what it's already supposed to be producing on its own. So we're not taking a drug, we're just supplementing something to help our body make something that it's supposed to make on its own. When you're doing this, what else helps the stomach to make hydrochloric acid? Well, you need vitamin D. You need a ton of vitamin D, way more than they tell you to take. You need like 8,000 IUs a day minimum. Okay. With that, you need the vitamin K. You need vitamin K2. Vitamin D3, by the way. Vitamin D3, about 8,000 IUs a day. And then vitamin K2. It helps vitamin D to be absorbed in our body in the correct way. You also need magnesium, especially magnesium glycinate. You also need sodium. Sea salt is a great additive to maybe your water. You can put it in your water. Sea salt's very important. The sodium is very important, and also B vitamins. Nutritional yeast is a great source of B vitamins. Just wanted to mention that real quick because you need the right nutrients to help your body naturally produce this acid it's supposed to be already producing on its own. And you do that together with the supplementation of the betaine hydrochloride, as I just explained. Here's where it gets a little complicated. Stay with me. You're doing everything I'm saying to do. You're eating healthy, your symptoms are getting better. But after a while, the problem comes back. Why? Now we're going to talk about two issues. Namely, something known as SIBO and also H. pylori. And I did not talk about this really in the other video, maybe a tiny bit, but not much. Let's go back to what I said real quick about stomach acid. Those of you who suffer from acid reflux, most likely you've had low stomach acid for a long time, maybe for years. And the medications you may have been given are further suppressing whatever stomach acid was left. If you've been taking a PPI, as I know other chanters who have been on a PPI, well, that PPI is suppressing the little stomach acid that your stomach was producing. The PPI and the acid reflux medication is suppressing that. What happens when the stomach is not acidic enough? Remember, I keep repeating this stuff so people understand. The stomach is supposed to be between 1 and 3. That's very acidic. That's like battery acid. What happens when the stomach is not acidic enough? What do you think happens? Take a guess. Bacteria starts growing where it's not supposed to grow. This can take the form of something called either SIBO or H. pylori. So what are these issues? So SIBO just stands for small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. It's bacteria growing where it's not supposed to grow. In a healthy human being, so I want you guys to understand the root cause here. It's so important. In a healthy human being, the stomach is acidic. So bacteria cannot grow in the stomach in a large amount, right? If you have SIBO, you have an overgrowth of bacteria basically in the small intestine where it's not supposed to be. And what happens is this causes excess fermentation and gas in the digestive system. And what it does is it causes alkaline waste to spill into the stomach. Very important to understand this. If you've had low stomach acid for years, it's very likely you have an overgrowth. Bacteria where it's not supposed to be, you have something like SIBO. In this case, this is where it gets complicated. You could be taking betaine hydrochloride. You could be supplementing with betaine hydrochloride, and the problem is this alkaline waste from the SIBO, from the small intestinal bacterial overgrowth that's coming into your stomach is neutralizing the stomach acid. And I wish this wasn't so complicated, but you can see why if you have this SIBO, then you're taking betaine hydrochloride and it's being neutralized because you have bacteria, that's an overgrowth of bacteria in your digestive system that's causing alkaline waste, causing something alkaline to come into the stomach, and it's neutralizing the stomach acid. Very, very important. How do you know if you have SIBO? SIBO predominantly produces a lot of bloating and gas, specifically when you eat fiber and probiotics. You feel bloated when you eat fiber. You probably may have SIBO. Because SIBO actually uses vegetables and probiotics and sugar. By the way, you should be definitely cutting out sugar. SIBO uses all of this as food. It feeds. SIBO basically is something that steals the nutrients that when you eat, steals the nutrients to allow it to, this bacterial overgrowth, to keep growing. So you don't absorb the nutrients as you should. So do you feel worse when you eat vegetables? Well, you might have SIBO. Okay. What do we do? What do we do here? Well, you have to starve the SIBO bacteria of its food. So this means you might have to cut out fruit and vegetables and probiotics temporarily for a while. You might have to eliminate it from your diet. I know this is crazy, but I want your efforts with taking the betaine hydrochloride to fix your acid reflux. I want those efforts to not go to waste. If you have SIBO, you could be supplementing with betaine hydrochloride, but the issue comes right back as I've just explained. Hopefully this is making sense. What works for many people, like I said, we don't want processed carbs. We don't want grains and stuff because that's actually going to lower our stomach acid. If you're cutting out vegetables because you have SIBO, what works for many people is the carnivore diet. It works for many, many people, including myself, who have suffered with this acid reflux. Now, you might want to wait till after Pascha to try this. We've got it in a couple weeks left, so just, hang in there. And I'm not saying the carnivore diet works for everyone. You have to see what works for you. And the carnivore diet, by the way, forces your stomach to make more acid to digest all the meat you're eating. But it definitely helped me, and it may help you. I personally don't do well with like fiber and carbs and stuff, but I do digest meat. Many people, their digestive system works in such a way where they digest red meat very well. The fat in the meat and the protein together, it digests very well for them, and it doesn't create like inflammation. That's why you hear so many people say that the carnivore diet fixed all their issues, all their health issues. And as much as some people love to try to discount the carnivore diet, make it seem bad, we have so many people who have improved so many health issues from the carnivore diet. That's undeniable. Again, you have to be careful not to have too much fat, because fried foods, fatty foods, can be a trigger for this LES to open. So you have to be careful with how much fat you eat. And with a lot of these carnivore diets include a lot of fat. So I just wanted to be clear about that. If you were to eat a carnivore or keto diet, keto is like carnivore, but you can eat vegetables and stuff, what would happen? Well, like I said, if you've been eating predominantly processed food and grains, well, grains actually don't require a lot of stomach acid to be digested. Grains and pasta and stuff, your body actually digests it you don't need a ton of stomach acid. So what I'm saying is your stomach maybe can get away with a very low acidity for a long time if all you eat is predominantly carbs, because your stomach doesn't require that much acid to digest the carbs. So your stomach may have gotten lazy over a period of years, just with not very much acidity, digesting the high carb diet if that's what you were eating. What's going to happen when you go on the keto or carnivore diet? Well, your stomach acid is really going to have to ramp up to digest all that protein you're going to be eating. leading to maybe feeling worse in the short term. Feeling worse. I know. I wish it wasn't this complicated. But when we decide not to take a pill to mask the symptoms, and we decide to get to the root cause, it's complicated. I wish it wasn't. But it's a long process. You have to be patient. Like I said, a carnivore diet will force your body to make more stomach acid. And you might have trouble early on digesting all that protein. And what's going to happen is, like I said, your symptoms might get worse. Your symptoms might get worse. What's going to happen over time if you stick with it? I'm not telling you you have to go on a carnivore diet. I'm sharing what my experience. If you stick with it, your stomach, and you continue with the betaine hydrochloride, your stomach will reach the correct pH and acidity, and you will start to feel better. So I just wanted to be clear about that. And the betaine hydrochloride is going to help with this process. Again, I'm sharing with you what has worked for me and tons of other people, and why it makes sense to kind of do a diet like this. But you have to decide for yourself what you want to do. As a side note, when you eliminate carbs from your diet and you switch over to fat and protein as your fuel source, this is known as ketosis, the keto diet, right? And the keto carnivore diet, like I said, has been shown to help with just a ton of health issues, but it does take some time in many ways for your body to adjust to this new source of fuel, especially if you're used to fueling your body with glucose, carbs, all that stuff. So what's my point here? We're talking about SIBO. SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, which is making your acid reflux symptoms come back. Well, this keto carnivore diet effectively is going to really help to get rid of this SIBO, because you're not going to be feeding the microbes carbs or fiber or probiotics. You're going to cut that out temporarily. You're going to go on a carnivore diet. That's why it's good for SIBO. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. And that's why that's why I made this video during Lent. A lot of people have magnified acid reflux symptoms during Lent. Now, why is that? I'm trying to put everything together here. Well, you're eating more fiber probably. You're eating more vegetables. You're eating more carbs. You're eating more foods that for many people are very inflammatory. And that might be why your acid reflux or vocal issues are worse during Lent. Right? So the carnivore diet's like this elimination diet that you can try in a couple weeks from now to kill off this SIBO. And as far as SIBO is concerned, what else can we do to kill it off? Well, we need to use antimicrobials. If I'm not mistaken, antibiotics are given to treat SIBO. How can we use natural antibiotics because if you take antibiotics, you're going to really mess up your digestive system in so many ways. How can we use natural antibiotics to kill SIBO? Well, some antimicrobials in nature would be oregano oil. Oregano oil, you can take some drops of it on an empty stomach. Has a lot of antimicrobial properties. Another thing is something called TUDCA. It's a bile salt, and this is a very another important component of this whole issue. And I wish just try to stay with me here, because this is really, I know this is complicated, but some people have a deficiency in bile. Well, we need bile to digest fat. And if you have a deficiency in bile, as I do, you're going to have trouble with fat. And a keto diet is high fat. Carnivore diet is high fat, because you're using fat as your fuel instead of carbs. So this TUDCA is a bile salt. And what it does is it helps to thin out your bile It helps for bile flow throughout your body. Well, bile acts as a detergent and as a sort of antimicrobial. When you get your bile flowing correctly, which many people, their bile is not flowing correctly, when you get your bile to flow correctly, as a side note, you're going to be able to digest the fat more easily. And that bile is going to come in and clean up the bacteria that's in places it's not supposed to be. So many of you, most of you, are going to need to supplement with TUDCA as well as betaine hydrochloride. How do you take TUDCA? Well, you're going to, again, start with one. A lot of people are going to need more than one, but start with one. It has to be taken on an empty stomach. So take it on an empty stomach, not before a meal. I just want to be very clear. It's alkaline. So you don't want to I know this is tricky, but I know this sounds complicated, but you don't want to put something alkaline into your body when we're trying to acidify the stomach. You want to take this on an empty stomach. You can also take it after the meal. After the meal, not before, not during, but after a meal. You can take one TUDCA. It's going to help with the flow of bile. Take one, see how you feel. If you get diarrhea or something, then you've taken too much and you should stop. But you're going to need TUDCA, most of you, as you transition to maybe a more ketogenic or carnivore diet. And as you start to get the acidity of your stomach, you also want the bile flowing correctly. Many of us, including myself, have needed to acidify the stomach and get the bile to flow because the bile was not flowing correctly. That's what the TUDCA is for. All right. Another issue that you might be struggling with if your acid reflux keeps coming back is something called H. pylori. H. pylori is a bacteria, microbe, something that a lot of people actually have. A lot of people. The interesting thing is it doesn't create symptoms for most people. But for those of you who have low stomach acid, you will feel H. pylori. If you have H. pylori, it very well may be creating symptoms, negative symptoms for you. H. pylori, basically it's a microbe that really thrives in low stomach acid. And what it does is it's very tricky. It downgrades your stomach acid so it can survive. And it burrows like deep into the stomach lining to protect itself from the stomach acid. So very sneaky sort of problem here. And again, you have to acidify the stomach with the betaine hydrochloride. And you also have to be taking these natural antimicrobials, like oregano oil. It's like a natural antibiotic. Another natural antibiotic is masticha. For you Greek people, you're going to know about this. Masticha. It's this gum, this resin. You can buy it in its pure form, not with sugar or anything. It's literally like gum. You can take it and chew it like gum. And it has antimicrobial properties. It's very cool. It's good for both SIBO and H. pylori. Take it on an empty stomach. And what else? Honey and garlic and horseradish, all this stuff kills H. pylori. That being said, garlic and horseradish may not be good for acid reflux in general, so you gotta be careful. It might cause some discomfort. Honey, specifically Manuka honey, has been shown to be very good for acid reflux and healing these sort of tissues within the esophagus and all that stuff. You can try incorporating Manuka honey into your diet. Something else that's really interesting is you might find that after catching, let's say, a cold or a virus, your acid reflux symptoms get worse. Why is that? That's because these viruses can actually activate or worsen things like SIBO or H. pylori that you maybe didn't even know you had. Maybe it wasn't an issue, but you got a cold over the winter, you got some virus, and now boom, the symptoms are worse of acid reflux. Something to be aware of. All the advice I've given here still, applies. So I say all of this to explain the underlying issues that are keeping you from completely wiping out this acid reflux that you might have. Especially SIBO. If you don't kill it, you'll continue having this alkaline waste and this overgrowth that's coming into the stomach and neutralizing all your efforts to acidify the stomach. So if you've made it this far, you're on the right track to healing your voice and your body so you can have a long, healthy chanting career. I know it's a long process. I know it's very long-winded, but you got to be patient. What else can you do as you're healing this issue? Well, don't eat before bed. Elevate your bed a little bit. Put some bricks. Get some bricks at Home Depot. Put it under your bed, just to elevate it just a little bit. Also, try something called intermittent fasting. Basically, when you wake up in the morning, try to go a few hours without eating. Try to go some time without eating, and give your digestive system a break. It's really, really going to help you. Try to go a period of time without eating anything. Also, heal the damage that has been over the years, Heal some of that damage with things like marshmallow tea. Buy it in bulk. Not marshmallows, but marshmallow tea. Let it seep in the water for a long time, like overnight, and then strain it. This contains properties that are going to heal these damaged tissues that have been damaged by acid reflux over the years. Another thing, ginger tea and chamomile. You can drink these during the day. Don't have it before bed. You want to be careful having it with a meal, basically, because these liquids can maybe make the stomach more alkaline and kind of counteract the effects of the betaine hydrochloride. Another thing, lower your stress. I remember during Holy Week when I was a few years ago, I was stressed out because it was Holy Week. It was very early on. I was still learning as a chanter. I also had assignments due and stuff because I procrastinated them. And I was stressed out. The acid reflux got way worse. Way worse. One other quick thing I want to talk about. I want to talk about something called pepsin, this stomach enzyme that I spoke about earlier. And I want to talk about how some of the things that you're gonna hear from some of these leading experts. And what do they say? And what do they get wrong when it comes to this? So some of you who have acid reflux, you may have heard Dr. Jamie Kaufman. She's one of the leading experts in this field of acid reflux, and she's actually she's the doctor who originally coined the term LPR, laryngopharyngeal reflux, this reflux that, for you chanters, is going up here and burning your vocal cords. And she later modified it to be called respiratory reflux, considering that this acid reflux affects not only the voice, it can also affect the respiratory system. I've looked into her material a lot, and she understands things pretty well, right? She speaks about the importance of your diet and lifestyle to actually treat this issue. She talks about the ineffectiveness of PPIs. She talks about natural remedies like manuka honey, and even chewing gum is going to be good. This is like xylitol gum. It's good for acid reflux, especially if you're on the keto diet, because on the keto diet or carnivore, you might have less saliva production. You need saliva for your digestion, so you can chew gum throughout the day. What she gets wrong, I notice, and I don't know why she says this, but she says it's so important to maintain an alkaline diet and drink tons of alkaline water. She thinks low stomach acid is not a thing. It doesn't exist. So she believes in making the stomach more alkaline. Well, if low stomach acid wasn't a thing, if that wasn't a problem, why did my symptoms get better when I increased my stomach acid? Again, You see the issue here. And if you listen to Dr. Jamie Kaufman, her advice kind of boils down to you have to just adhere to these strict dietary restrictions and live have this extremely healthy diet, and if you mess up, your acid reflux comes back. So she doesn't actually try to treat the root cause. I think she charges like $500 for her consultations or something, and she never really gets to like the root cause. I don't know. You could think about that in whatever way you would like. And so something she talks about that I just want to touch on real quick is this idea of pepsin. Very, very important. Pepsin is a digestive enzyme that your stomach is supposed to make to digest proteins. When we have acid reflux, the pepsin actually gets absorbed into these tissues of the esophagus and the vocal cords. Well, what does pepsin do? It digests tissue. So those of you who have acid reflux coming up, you have pepsin digesting these tissues. That's a problem. Pepsin digests protein, to be specific, is what I'm trying to say. And the pepsin, you don't want it coming up here because it's going to digest these tissues of the vocal cords and the esophagus. She says, this Dr. Jamie Kaufman, she emphasizes the importance of deactivating the pepsin in the throat. And she's right about that. You need to deactivate this pepsin in the throat that gets activated every time something acidic touches it. So anything acidic actually reactivates the pepsin that may be in these tissues. You have to deactivate that. You have to kill the pepsin. Her solution is drink tons of alkaline water. Well, if you drink tons of alkaline water, let's do some math here. You're going to make your stomach more alkaline. Then we're back at square one, where this valve is not closing. You haven't actually gotten this valve to close, so the stomach acid contents keep coming up. And guess what else keeps coming up? Pepsin, because your stomach naturally makes pepsin. So we got to get this valve to close instead of drinking tons of alkaline water. Now, if we actually want to deactivate pepsin in the throat, I do have some tips of something you can do. You can take alkaline substances like alkaline water, baking soda, and you can let these tissues here absorb it, but you don't have to consume it. How do we do that? Well, you can make an alkaline water or baking soda spray and spray it and inhale it into your nose and onto your vocal cords, and that's going to deactivate the pepsin without consuming it. Okay? So, last but not least, a lot of you are on PPIs, and you're watching this video and you're on a PPI. What do? I've spoken to chanters who were on a PPI and they're like trying to follow my advice, and they stopped taking the PPI and they had terrible symptoms. Burning and just miserable. And again, why would that be? Well, it makes sense because you stopped taking an acid inhibiting medication. So now the little stomach acid that your stomach is making is coming up and burning your throat. It's actually very weak acid, but it's not supposed to be up here, so it's burning. A PPI is like a band-aid that covers up the real issue. So the second you stop taking the PPI, a small amount of stomach acid, like I said, is gonna come up. So if you're on a PPI, the number one thing for you to know is you can't just stop taking it right away. You can't just stop cold turkey. You need to slowly wean yourself off of it as you're implementing these things. And like I said, it might get worse before it gets better. I don't have experience taking a PPI, so I can't say a ton about this. You have to kind of work with your doctor if this is kind of the path you want to take of actually treating the root problem instead of covering it up. But that's something very important. Okay, I spent like an hour talking about this, and I didn't want to leave details out and make you more confused about this, because like I said, it's a very complicated issue. I'm not even I don't want to sell you anything. Of course, you know that I teach chanting lessons. You want to learn Byzantine chant. You want to work with me to deal with any issue you have as a chanter. I know what I'm talking about. I know how to help you because I've been through it. Link in the description. But as far as this, I told you everything I can possibly tell you. Again, if I were to go really in depth, it would take hours and hours. But I give you all the basics as quickly, as briefly as possible. So I hope this helps you. And if you do what I say, if you follow everything I say in this video, just to recap, step 1, acidify the stomach. You'll know right away if that's the solution. If you're taking betaine hydrochloride to acidify your stomach, and the symptoms, you don't even feel a difference. Like, you don't even feel a burning. And you know that your stomach needs more acid, and that's the problem, right? So that's a pretty easy way to figure that out. And then as you're doing that, you need to kill any bacterial overgrowth that may be there because of years of low stomach acid. And you need to fix your diet, and you need to eat the right things. And if you do all of this, you're really, really going to save your voice as a chanter if you suffer from this, because this can really, really cause problems. So I hope this was helpful, and I hope you have a wonderful remainder of Lent.